Hello, I'm Franey, the Director of Programming for the International Film Festival, and I am delighted that we're able to have a conversation now with the Director of Blue Box, Michal Weits.
Hi, Anne.
Hi, thank you so much for being here with us today. Can I start by asking you where you are?
Right now, I'm in Tel Aviv. I live here. I'm originally from Jerusalem, but for the past 15 years, I'm in Tel Aviv.
And this is a Israeli-Canadian co-production. So can I ask what that means? Who did what, and whether you are a regular visitor to Canada yourself?
Well, first of all, it's Israeli-Canadian and also with Belgium. So it was a big adventure. With most of the research and, of course, the shooting and editing we did here in Tel Aviv. And all the post-production we did in Canada. But unfortunately, because of COVID, I was supposed to fly for 5 weeks in Montreal to do the post-production. And 2 days before the flight, COVID starts and they canceled all the flights. But maybe it was a good thing because I was in 7 months pregnant. So maybe it's a good thing I stayed in Tel Aviv. But we did it remotely. We had an amazing crew in Montreal and with the help of all the technology, we were able to do it remotely. And in Belgium, we did all the maps and graphics. They did also an amazing job. It was a big challenge. I've been in Canada once pitching in Toronto in hot dogs. It was in the beginning of the work on the film, and it was very good experience. We won first prize for the best pitch, and we got to meet our Canadian partners over there. So I had a very good experience in Canada, and unfortunately, I didn't have the chance to go again. I hope it will happen after COVID will go away.
So since its premiere at Hot Docs, which was late spring, early summer, not so long ago, I understand it's been at a few other festivals, but it's also opened already in Israel.
Yes.
Can you tell us a bit about how people have responded to the film there?
Sure. We had a big premiere in Doc Aviv Film Festival in Tel Aviv. And we had big screenings. A lot of people, almost 2,000 people watched the film. And it was an amazing experience for me because I wasn't quite sure what will be the reaction for the film in Israel. And the reaction were amazing. Of course, there are some people who had problem with this part or that part in the film. It's not a film that you can stay cool and not say anything about it. But the reaction were very good. I'm very happy that the film started some kind of a debate in Israel because it's a film that even for the left-wing parties in Israel, it made them feel a bit uncomfortable because in Israel, and I think that in most of the world, when we're talking about the conflict between Israel and the Palestinians, we're talking about 67 and the occupation. And this film this film tells a story about what happened before 67, about how it all started in 48 and even earlier in the 30s, when the Jewish people came here and started to buy land from the Arabs. So this is the starting point of the conflict. And for a lot of people, it's or unknown history. And it may sound a bit funny, but because we are Israelis and we're supposed to know our history the best, but it's not that. It's not like that. We don't learn that part of history in school, and our parents didn't talk about that history with us. So the part of the war in 48, it's kind of a taboo in Israel. You don't talk about it. And even we have, unfortunately, it's not me, it's the government, a law, the Nakba law, that bans any mentions of the Nakba, or to do some kind of a memorial ceremony from the Palestinian side. So nobody really wants to talk about it, and the film brings the story of 48, and it's not me telling the story, like it's my great grandfather and the diaries and the things that he wrote every day, a few hours after they happened. So it makes it very difficult to argue with the facts. And a lot of people felt very uncomfortable, because even if I'm on the left side of the political map, those are things that even for the left side, it's difficult to deal with.
I thought that your film is so special, not just on this issue, but as cinema and amongst political or historical documentaries, because you have in the one person, your great grandfather, such clear expression of his own doubts. You have both his determination and purpose laid out very clearly, but then you have the complexities and what he was aware of as contradictions and unforeseen problems that then become something that one has to deal with. And if you're saying that there's tends to be a bit of amnesia and people not wanting to deal with these things every day, your film is such a vivid reminder that it's there for the record, and that people who are capable of digging deeply into their own past will have to confront these contradictions. And there's a tragic dimension to human life in any case, certainly in the founding of a state like Palestine and the circumstances. I'm curious about if you feel that the generational shift that time brings, what's going to happen when your generation are the senior statesmen, and in fact there's a new curriculum being devised by you and your peers? I mean, how will things perhaps be, or what you hope them to be in 10, 20 years?
I think that the generation that established the state is a generation that it's very hard to talk with about this subject. They are the heroes, and it's some kind of a really a taboo if it's matter to this generation. And the generation of my parents were raised up the fact that we don't talk about it. Don't ask questions. You won't get answers. Don't talk about it. We don't going to teach about it in school. Just like this. And then comes my generation. We're not emotionally attached to things that happened 70 years ago. We weren't here. So maybe you can say that, okay, now she's sitting in Tel Aviv and she has a country, and she don't know how difficult it was or how impossible it was. But on the other side, we don't afraid to say the word Nakba. I think that's okay, and nothing will happen if we'll say that word, and if we'll start to acknowledge the disaster that happened to the other people, that we still have to find a way to live with them. And acknowledgement is the first step ever that we need to do. Nothing will happen before we'll acknowledge the history of the Palestinians. So I think that there is less fear to deal with this subject, and we are not afraid to annoy anyone or to hurt the feeling of the fathers that established the state, because they are not here anymore. But we are looking towards the future. We have a conflict that I think it's one of the longer conflict in history of the world. There is no conflict that lasts for so many years, and we don't see any light at the end of the tunnel. And we understand that in order for my children and further generation will be able to live here, we need to start and find solution. And no solution is the only solution is to start talking with the Palestinians and saying, yeah, we know that your tragedy, and it's not only saying and acknowledge. We need to find a solution. Maybe we need to find some solution of compensation, and maybe a symbolic right of return. But we have to start and find those solutions, because it's not a story that belongs to the past. This is totally our future.
You may have answered this question already in those words, but I'm curious whether you feel, whether you have enough experience to judge as well, that there's a difference in the way the issue of the Palestinians and the Israelis are talked about outside of Israel. Like if you imagine a conversation happening at a city in North America, for example, do you think that there's an ignorance from the distance that Israelis don't have, just a sense of realpolitik? Can you talk to that? Do you have enough experience with how people outside Israel might have illusions?
I was kind of surprised to find out that people outside of Israel sometimes know more about the conflict than Israelis. Especially if we're talking about 1948 and what happened to the lands of the Palestinians. So, as I said earlier, we don't get this information at home or school. So a lot of times I met people, not Israelis, not Jewish people, that knows more about this story than us. This is wrong, I think. But on the other hand, I think that viewing this conflict from outside may be a little bit complicated, because you have to live here to understand. It's not that every day people get killed and then we're riding on camels or things like that I heard from people. It's complicated. We have the Palestinians outside of Israel. We have the Israeli Arabs, or the Palestinians that live inside of Israel. And we have people that really wants to find a solution and live side by side together. And like in every place, we have the extreme people from the Israelis and then the Arab side that just searching for a conflict and terror, but it's complicated. And in our everyday, we're in some kind of interaction with the Arab population in Israel, and it's very interesting to, when I was a child in Jerusalem, my mom didn't allow me to go to school with bus because we had the explosion of buses here, and it's very traumatic to live in a conflict zone like that. But most of the time, it's less dramatic than it seems from the outside. But we have to remember that I have to remember all the time that I live in a safe place, while in Gaza or in a lot of refugees camp, people are not. So you have to think about it all the time. And I just have to say that I had the chance that a few Arabs that lives in Israel watched the film, and I was very surprised by their reactions. One of the most exciting reaction was a woman that lives near Haifa, and her family went through the Nakba. And at the end of the screening, she came to me crying, and we just hugged each other, and we told to each other how complicated it is. And right now, the solution seems very far, but the film, for her, she told me that the film is a big step because we can now talk about it on that topic that no one really wants to talk, and that it's their pain and their tragedy and their history and their family. So I hope we'll have the chance to screen for more Palestinians.
I just want to compliment you on your achievement here. It's a very special film, and the way you've been able to work with the written text and to bring such an important arc of history with so much detail, so much meaningful information into such a well-told story. It's very special film. I should also mention for our viewers that we have an interesting array of films that are related to this in the festival this year. We're showing a film called Little Palestine, Diary of a Siege, which is about a Palestinian camp in Syria. It's a Lebanese, French, Qatari production. And then we also have Avi Maghrabi's new film, The First 55 Years, an abbreviated manual for an occupation. And those three films together are really something. I mean, it's been an extraordinary year for cinema dealing with this, and Blue Box, if you've enjoyed it, I highly recommend those others. So thank you so much for making this film and for being with us here today.
Thank you so much, and I wish I could be there. Thank you.